What's up, guys? Ben Pearsall here, and welcome back to another book of the Bible. It is the Gospel of John today, and the last of the four Gospels that we are going to go through. So if you're just now joining us, we've already covered Matthew, Mark, and Luke, so we've been saving my favorite one for last. We never want to leave anyone in the dark on these, so let's go ahead and give some historical perspective and then context to the book itself before we actually get into it. If you couldn't guess by now, the book was written by the apostle/disciple John in about 85 AD. Now, John really breaks down into two different parts of the book. So in chapters 2 through 12, we really see Jesus from more of a public perspective, whereas in chapters 13 through 21, we get a more behind-the-scenes look of how he actually interacted with his disciples, John the author, of course, being one of them. The book was written to Christians in the province of what is now modern-day Turkey, and it was meant to give them a better understanding of the life and ministry of Jesus. So it's 21 chapters long. We're going to park it here for the next several weeks, but going to have a lot of fun in the process. All right, well, with that, let's kick things off. This is chapter 1. Now, something interesting about the book of John, which is similar to the book of Mark, is that there's really no information given on the birth of Jesus or his genealogy. We kind of just jump right into the beginning of Jesus' ministry. But with that said, we also get a glimpse as to how Christ came to the earth in the first place and how he existed even before it. So this is really interesting. Look at verses 1 through 5. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. Now, when John refers to the Word, he's speaking specifically about Jesus. What John is doing here is reminding us of the very first verse in the Bible in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, that God spoke the world into existence by his Word. So literally, at the very beginning of creation, Jesus himself was present before he ever came to earth. Now, this concept is alluded to all throughout the Bible. In the Old Testament, we see what we would call Christophanies. Now, this is when Jesus would make an appearance like he did to Abraham before Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. Even Jesus himself declared, before Abraham was, I am. This makes Jesus not only fully man, but fully God. Okay, look at the rest of the way that John describes Jesus here in verse 14, and then skip down to verses 17 through 18. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory. The glory is of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Now skip down to verse 17 through 18. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. So the Word, Jesus, that already existed, became flesh. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, being fully divine, put on flesh and bone and became fully God while also being fully man. Now, verse 17 I love, and I actually did a whole video on this one verse called The Crumbling of the Church. So I'll put a link in the description below for that video. But there may be no better description of Jesus than this. He was full of grace and truth. You know, too much truth and you become hard and judgmental. Too much grace and we fall into error and allow almost anything to go unchecked. Jesus was the perfect balance of both of these. Whereas before all we had to go off of was the law of Moses, Jesus now shows the love of the Father by still bringing truth, but it's fully wrapped in grace. Now, the next thing in this chapter is John the Baptist baptizing Jesus, but it doesn't go into as much detail as some of the other Gospels. Now, right after that, we read about Jesus calling his first disciples to come and follow him. Now, the first disciples that are mentioned are Andrew and Peter, but it's assumed that John was also with Andrew when they began following Jesus. Next, Jesus tells Philip to follow him, and he too becomes a disciple. Now, the last part of this chapter is really interesting because it's one of the only spots in the whole Bible that we read about this disciple named Nathanael. Now, he's only mentioned here and in chapter 21 of the book of John as well, but it's an interesting story, so let's read verses 45 through 51. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. And Nathanael said to him, Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Philip said to him, Come and see. Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said of him, Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no deceit. Nathanael said to him, How do you know me? Jesus answered and said to him, Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Nathanael answered and said to him, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Jesus answered and said to him, because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these. And he said to him, most assuredly I say to you, hereafter you shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. Now this was obviously a miracle that Jesus did that convinced Nathanael. But notice how at first Nathanael questions, can anything good come out of Nazareth? See, the reason he's asking that is not only because Nazareth was small and obscure, but it wasn't supposed to be the birthplace of the Messiah. That was supposed to be Bethlehem. Now Jesus recognizes this about Nathanael, and he isn't bothered by it, but he rather commends him by saying, in you there is no deceit. In other words, Jesus recognized that Nathanael knew God's word, and he was impressed by it. Now, of course, Jesus was really born in Bethlehem, and he fulfilled all of the prophecies concerning it, but for most people, that fact was hidden. It was the way that God was bringing redemption to the world, but all being set up quietly without everyone knowing. Not only had the Messiah been born, but he was now starting his ministry. All right, guys, well, that is chapter 1. Man, I love this stuff. When I read through these chapters, I just get a smile on my face because I can picture so many of these situations and stories in my mind. It's the incredible story of Jesus' life, and I love that we get to go through it again. Man, guys, well, thank you for being here today. Hope you'll stay with us through the remainder of this book as we cover the life of Jesus. We'll come back tomorrow for chapter 2. Until then, I hope you have a beautiful day. God bless you wherever you may be watching this from. I will see you back here tomorrow.